Greetings, urban farmers, gardeners, and healthy food visionaries. Farmer Greg here, and welcome to the 456th episode of the Urban Farm Podcast, where every day we work together to educate and inspire you to become part of your food revolution.
Hey there, this is Janice, the Urban Farm Podcast Manager, and I'm excited about the new growth in our farms and gardens everywhere I turn, and I love that we get to be a part of it. For helping us all in our goals to grow our own food, we are grateful to our sponsors, Lacrosse Boots and Gemplers. Let them know you appreciate it too, and check out their websites for some great farm products.
I learned a long time ago that having good tools supports my dedication to being a lazy gardener. Along the way, I've always looked for the best, most innovative products that are fairly priced and sold by a company that treated me like I matter. That is why I'm so excited to find Gemplers. They've been around since 1939 when they started selling tires to farmers. Still located in Wisconsin, they take pride in finding the highest quality product to make your hardest outdoor jobs easier. Gemplers offers thousands of products to help you with your urban farming and gardening projects, tools that pave the way for greater harvests. Over the next few months, I will be reviewing some of my favorites and adding them to my very own page on their website. Gemplers is dedicated to being the best place you've ever shopped, treating you like a neighbor. Whether you're a business owner or a passionate hobbyist, please accept my invitation to get acquainted with them. They've even set up a special offer for Urban Farm Podcast listeners. Enter Urban Farm 01 to save 20% on your first order. Visit Gemplers.com/urban farm to make your gardening and farming chores that much easier.
At Lacrosse Boots, we salute the land, the rolling acres you've come to know like the back of your own hands, the fertile soil where your family has grown and your everyday moments have blossomed into everlasting memories. For this land is your land, your bedrock, your private parcel of earth that keeps you firmly grounded to what truly matters most. Lacrosse Boots, done right since 1897. Visit us at lacrossefootwear.com to find a dealer near you.
Today on our podcast, we have someone who brings the whole system approach of design and nature to her farm. We're talking with Raven Venturelli on permaculture on the small farm. Raven is a small farmer and activist for environmental and social justice. She has been studying permaculture design for 10 years and manages Blue Apple Farm in Cornville, Arizona. She is on the board of the Sedona-based nonprofit Gardens for Humanity, on the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance teaching team, and runs the Verde Valley Seed Library. Welcome to the show today, Raven. Are you ready to rock permaculture?
I am, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So I shared a bit about you. Can you fill in the blanks for us and share more about the path you took to get where you're at today?
Sure. I really want to live in a world where the water is more pure with every subsequent year, and the air is more clean, and the soil is more diverse.
Nice.
And so that's really my passion and what pushes me to do what I do. I also have a great passion for seed sovereignty and food security. So all of those things combined with a background in permaculture design have really led me to chasing my dream of being a small farmer, and I chased that to Cornville, Arizona, which wasn't what I expected, but I'm really happy to be here.
Nice. So permaculture, that's what we used for decades used to call the P word, and now it's much more widely accepted and known about. In fact, when I started talking about permaculture 30 years ago here in Phoenix, nobody knew what it was. Now about 50% of the people know. So yay.
Yeah.
How did you find out about permaculture, and where did you take your training at?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, or in the suburbs of Los Angeles, and in my early 20s, I was 23 when I took my PDC with Larry Santoyo and Earthflow Design.
Love Larry.
Are you a student of Larry as well, right?
I am.
Yep. So he was in LA. He was really the prominent permaculture design instructor, and I believe still is for that area. And I signed up for a 6-month design course with my parents, Jody and Angelo. All three of us took the course together, which was really quite wonderful because, it's so much information. So being able to go home and decompress and talk about these things at the end of the weekend was really huge for all of us. And for me, it was being 23, I was just sort of ripe for that information. And it really did change my life. Not to be over dramatic, but it had a huge impact on my life. It still does. And really gave me a perspective shift of how to be in the world and not just have this very humanistic, industrialized worldview, which I was raised in. We all were raised in.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great gift for me to have kind of the boundaries shattered a little bit, and that really started my own integration into the natural world.
So when I discovered permaculture and did my permaculture design course, it was 1991. And for me, the realization was, oh my gosh, there's actually something that I can call this, because I knew down to my toes that there was something different.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience around that.
Growing up in Los Angeles or the broader LA County area, you're really engulfed in Hollywood. You're really engulfed in the car culture. If anybody hasn't been to Los Angeles, there actually are a lot of trees there. But you're in the concrete jungle. And my background was in music. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston out of high school and had just really come back to LA and was kind of searching for what it all meant, Here I am in my early 20s, and everybody's like, what are you going to do with your life? And I'm looking around at this really insane culture and insane world going, I don't really know. And so when I took that course, it kind of gave me a pathway to leave things better than I found them,
Mm-hmm.
to really understand that we can't just keep taking and not giving back. And I think humans understand that on like an interpersonal human level, but unfortunately, we don't apply that to the natural world.
Well, of course, because we think we know how to do it better than nature.
Yes, which is debatable.
Well, there's no debate here for me, man.
Absolutely.
Toby Hemingway, when he was alive, he used to always say, nature always bats last, and I fully believe that.
Absolutely. I think that's Guy McPherson's website, too, if you're familiar with his work.
I'm not.
Nature bats last.
Wow, cool. So I always ask my permaculture the people that have taken permaculture courses, define permaculture for us, would you? For those people that don't know what it is.
Sure. My definition of permaculture, and I have no doubt that many other people have said this, but I view permaculture as a philosophy or a holistic design methodology that's based on the patterns, principles, and relationships observable in the natural world.
Nice. And my number one rule about permaculture is observe. Stand back and pay attention to what's going on around you.
Yes.
You run a small farm, and how did you get there? Because I know that, I just had a call yesterday from a young gentleman, you know who you are if you're listening, that he's trying to navigate from living in an apartment to actually having a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get there?
I think one of the big challenges for young people who want to get into farming is access to land.
Yes.
And money. So before I moved to Cornville, I was living in San Luis Obispo County, California, which is like in the Central Coast, about an hour or so north of Santa Barbara. And it's wine country. It's very expensive. It's gorgeous. But I was having a real problem getting access to land or really being able to implement what I had learned with permaculture and how I wanted to farm. So my parents had moved to Cornville in July of 2016, and they bought an acre, and they basically offered it to me, which at first I was like, no, I'm not moving to, where do you live in Arizona?
Right.
And then just kind of, I have worked on a lot of farms and was trying to get something in alignment and feeling like if I stayed in California, not only did I not have the money to really purchase property, cost of living is high, if I'm leasing or renting, or the available land was just really not good. Soil wasn't good, water was scarce, maybe I was in fire country. So I finally kind of came to my senses and said, you know what, this is an opportunity to manage a farm the way I think it should be managed, do my own trial and error, make my own decisions, and ultimately a property that is going to be mine eventually because it's in the family. So I just decided that now is the best time to start. I think most permaculture designers really have at least a 5 or 10 year design plan. And it's hard to do that if you're renting or leasing. Certainly if you're just running annual vegetables, maybe that's a little bit different. And I would never deter anybody from leasing some land just to get started. But given kind of the bigger picture of what I was trying to accomplish, I packed up all my stuff and moved to Cornville.
Nice. Well, and, Bill and Belle from Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, Bill and I do the monthly seed chat, and we've done seed school with them online, and we do the Great American Seed Up. So I've spent some time in Cornville, and Cornville's let's not tell anybody, but it's a beautiful place.
Well, you just told everybody. No, it is. It's in the heart of the Arizona Greenbelt, about 20, 30 minutes south of Sedona. It is. It's a really beautiful place. It's got great soil, fresh air, clean water, these sort of really important things that, unfortunately, we take for granted.
Yeah. And the cool thing so I actually was on a consulting gig late last year up there on some land in the Cornville, Verde Valley area. And what I discovered was how much food you can actually grow there. It's easier to grow there because it's not so hot.
Yes.
And the Verde Valley area could be the breadbasket of the state.
It should be, and I have no doubt that it was, pre-industrial agriculture or even just, 75 years ago or so.
Wow. So tell me about your farm. I drive up the driveway and I arrive there. What am I going to see?
As you come into the property, you are going to see some ginormous thujas and Arizona cypress and mesquite. So I am eternally grateful for previous owners of this property who planted trees and really put in some solid bones on the property.
Yeah.
You would see my nursery low tunnels that are full of plant babies. You would see a little kitchen garden in the front that's full of, right now, flowers and wheat. And as you walked through the property, the market garden encompasses about the back quarter acre, then wraps around on the west side to an orchard. We have about 40 fruit and nut trees. I think 8 to 10 were already here on the property, and when my parents bought the property, they planted more trees. I got here about a year later. I moved here in late June of 2017, and I spent about 6 months just observing and throwing seeds out, planting stuff. It doesn't freeze till Halloween at the earliest, so I knew if I got here by July, I still had about 90 days of a growing season to work with. So I didn't launch right into the farm right away, but I spent those first 6 months really walking the property every day and trying to imagine where things go and what I was going to focus on to start growing. And then I had a couple interns, Gary and Lena, who were here for about 3 months at the very beginning of 2018, and they were instrumental in doing some big projects. Like the whole property was irrigated like a golf course when I got here.
Oh, wow.
So that needed to be changed out, and beds needed to be built, soil needed to be prepped. So we got a whole lot done in about 90 or 100 days that they were here. And I've just been plugging away since then. I didn't try to start too big too soon. We just keep adding more beds. I got some summer stuff in, and then while that was running, I put in some beds that would be planted for fall. And then when those were up and running, I've got more beds in to be planted for winter. And, it goes on and goes on. The market garden is still evolving. It's not at its capacity yet, but we do all sorts of stuff. I have hugelkultur beds, if you're familiar with Sepp Holzer and his work. I have raised beds. I have in-ground beds. I just run the whole gamut. Have herbs under the trees, and we tried to keep bees. Unfortunately, the bees got robbed, or at least this is what I believe happened. Robber bees came in, and then my bees just basically turned into wild bees, which is okay.
Yeah. Can't do it all. Not at first.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
No, you can't do it all. The bees are actually a friend of mine's, so I wasn't trying to be a beekeeper. I was just providing space for her hives.
Wow. So how did you learn how to do all of this?
Well, I worked on a number of farms in California, and then, interestingly, when I got into farming and then I ran into all of these hurdles of getting access to land, one of my sort of breakthrough moments was when I stopped and I asked myself, okay, so even if you did have access to land, what would you do with it? And that was a really good question for me to ask, and that led me to seed, because in permaculture design, I don't know if Larry said, we work high in the watershed, whether that's literal or metaphorical.
Both.
And so when I kind of dialed in on the importance of seed and the role that I expected seed to play on my farm, my future farm, things started really dialing in for me. So I went online and I was looking for resources around seed farming, and I found that the Organic Seed Alliance, based out of the Pacific Northwest, has an intern program to connect aspiring seed farmers to existing seed farmers.
Wow.
So that there can be a knowledge transfer there. And I found out about that program pretty much immediately after I had asked myself, well, what would you even do with land if you had access to it? And probably 6 weeks later, I landed in Polson, Montana on Fresh Fruits Farm with Carl Sutton and his wife, Darcy Jones, and I spent about 3.5 months in Montana working on their 5-acre farm, which was mixed production. They sold at the co-op in Missoula and sold to restaurants and did the farmers market, and then they also grew seed on contract for Fedco and maybe High Mowing. And then Carl was also part of the Triple Divide Seed Co-op, which is a group of Western Montana farmers who pool all their seed together and packet it and sell it to the local community.
Wow.
So I really got a crash course. When you are working 40, 50 hours a week on a farm like that, it was certified organic, you can't help but learn. And I really treated it like farm school. I was like, okay, I'm going to farm school. I got paid. Nobody had ever paid me to go to school before, so that was really
Nice.
my perspective that
Right.
I took into it, and I learned a ton. So along with that, just reading, I read Jean-Martin Fortier's The Market Gardener book while I was there, read Elliot Coleman's books, watching YouTube videos. I mean, all of that is important. Nothing really, the books don't really add up to the hands-on training.
Right.
I just don't think that's replaceable. And then trying to farm where you are, because, of course, western Montana and the foothills of the Rocky Mountains is very different than here. But there's a whole lot of really foundational information that is applicable no matter where you are.
Right. Wow. So you just jumped in and decided this is what I want to do with my life and learned.
Yeah, I think I'd really gotten to a point in my own study of permaculture where I was like, okay, I'm either starting a landscaping business or trying to start a small farm. And the small farm was way more appealing to me, and so that's what I really put my energy behind.
Awesome. Well, and it sounds like a huge gift that your parents have an acre.
Oh, so much. It's funny, here in Cornville, I tell people I'm a small farmer, and everybody says, oh, how much acreage are you farming?
Yep.
It's like we've lost this sort of concept of the small farm, and it's just everybody's idea of farming is industrial ag, and that's really unfortunate because I think we know that small farmers really produce the majority of food on the planet. Most of the industrialized produce that's grown is thrown away or, rots in the field, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we have way more efficient ways to grow food, and we need our food to be localized, and we need sovereignty over our seed because that's the ultimate in food security.
Oh, amen to that. That is for sure. And I also get that. I say I'm Greg Peterson with the Urban Farm, and often people will say, well, how many acres do you have?
Right.
I have a third of an acre.
I don't think any of those people have ever managed even a quarter-acre market garden because you can grow a lot of food and we're so disconnected from our food that people just, they can't make those connections.
How did you come about figuring out what to do with your produce, and then what do you do with it?
We have a Cornville Farmers Market. That's every Monday, and it runs for the majority of the year, unlike some of the other local farmers markets here in the Verde Valley that don't run quite as long or kind of stop and start with the monsoon season. So I knew I had an outlet in the Cornville market, and that is basically what I have designed and geared the market garden towards. I mean, we're just finishing our first year of production. So that's what I do. I do one market. Through the market, I've met people in the community who come and buy farm direct. And then also through the market, I've met a chef who works at Enchantment, which is this sort of schwanky resort in Sedona.
Uh-huh.
So that's the bulk of my sales right now is I just do one weekly market and I sell to this chef. And occasionally I have people come to the farm because they can't make the market.
Right. Well, that was always one of my favorite ways in because I market farmed in 99 to about 2004 while I was going to ASU. And
Cool.
one of the things that I did is I found 3 or 4 chefs and I asked them what they wanted me to grow.
Yeah.
And then I had one chef owned a restaurant here in Phoenix that she just basically took whatever I had left over after I went to the market. So I'd get up early in the morning, I'd harvest the stuff out of the yard, I'd go to the market, I'd sell what I had. Anything I had left over went to Susan at the Calico Cow, and
Great.
She would feed me lunch.
Yeah. Good deal. Good deal.
Yeah. So how has that worked for you? Are you getting to a place of being able to make a living doing this?
We're moving in that direction, and actually it's happening a little faster than I expected. Our first season, we launched last summer of 2018, and ran into all the problems, all the bugs. The javelina are ripping down our fences and ate my squash, ate my corn, ate my potatoes. They were probably the greatest appreciators of Blue Apple Farm.
Nice.
But everybody's got to eat, right?
Yep.
So we definitely started slowly, and I think, a farm is a business, and any other business that somebody would try to launch, you would expect to, have some struggles in the beginning, and we most certainly did. So, at first it was like, oh, wow, we're making $50 at the farmer's market, and it can be a little disheartening for how much labor and energy you're putting into it, but we kind of bounced back in the fall and had a good winter and have had a good spring. So I think people are getting to know me and getting to know the family, And we've had a couple events on the farm, which really
nice.
attracts people to it. People love to come and visit, want to do a farm tour.
Mm-hmm.
And we also do, I have a diverse farm. I'm not just putting all my eggs in the produce basket. We do cut flowers. I have plant starts. So many people in Cornville homestead or have pretty significant gardens. So I'm not selling seed. I'm not licensed to sell seed, but I share seed with people, trade seed, and mostly I save seed for my own market garden, and then I sell plant starts at the market and farm direct. And so that feels like it's a good, balanced farm plan / business plan that I'm excited to continue pushing forward as the market garden expands and evolves and grows. It certainly has its limits.
And are your fruit trees producing yet?
Yeah, so the fruit trees that were already on the property, there's an apricot, a couple plums, an Italian plum, peach, 2 pears, and a cherry that are all, unfortunately I don't really know. They've got to be at least 8 or 10 years old. And yes, they do produce. And then we've added persimmons, pomegranates, pecans, almonds. I have almonds on our laundry to landscape gray water system.
Nice.
So many of the trees are young and they're not fully producing yet, but they will be in the years to come.
Excellent. And I take it you're taking that produce to the market?
Yes.
And one of the things that I noticed when I was going to market was that if I missed a week or two, my sales would drop dramatically because people really came to count on me being there every Saturday or every Wednesday. Have you found that?
In a way, yes, I have found that. Although it's kind of a double-edged sword because if you miss a week, sometimes my sales are better because people are like, well, where were you? And I really missed those fresh onions, or I really missed your spinach. I grew amazing spinach in the winter, and everybody would walk away like Popeye with this big, 1-pound bag of spinach under their arm, and it just made me smile. But yes, I think consistency, like any business, you got to know your market. And one of the benefits of being a small farmer in Cornville is that we live in a complete and utter food desert. Other than the weekly farmers market, of which I'm really the only person there consistently with a diverse fresh produce. Mm-hmm. There's microgreens, and in the summer, some of the vendors will, say, get overage tomatoes or something from a farm in Camp Verde, and they'll bring them up and sell them at the market. But it's pretty inconsistent. And other than that, Cornvillians, as I call us, need to go to Cottonwood, Camp Verde, or Sedona just to go to, your, quote, supermarket to buy fresh produce. So all we have in Cornville are little, liquor stores or mini marts, kind of the equivalent of a 7-Eleven, which is full of processed food, and then they have a couple apples and bananas on the counter, So I would say, I know you didn't ask this question, but if anybody wants to be a farmer and they have the ability to move, go somewhere where there's no food being produced because, there's a niche to be filled there. Mm-hmm. And it's a very important one. Of course, in Arizona, there's a large elderly population, and maybe they don't drive anymore, or I don't know, but they have to travel at least 10 miles, 10 miles just to get, lettuce or a tomato or anything really. So I think that the more people growing food in these food deserts, we really make a difference. And, the farmers market has turned into Farmer Appreciation Day,
Nice, yeah.
Where at first I was like, oh, I'm going to go sit there and make $20. And, now the table is busy, and we're just at the end of our first year of production. So, everybody eats, and those communities where fresh food is not readily available, they're the places that need farms and need farmers markets. And And, just being able to talk to your farmer is huge.
That's huge. That is huge. So the Cornville Farmers Market is on Mondays. It's all year around, right?
It's March through December.
Oh, very good. So check out the Cornville. If you get to Cornville, check out the Cornville Farmers Market on Mondays.
Absolutely.
From 2 p.m. till dusk. So I'm going to shift on you, and I'd like for you to talk about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure, and what you learned from it.
Well, I think farming is just an exercise in failing gracefully.
Right?
This whole year has been just, one challenge and one failure after another, and certainly successes mixed in. But mostly, I think, remaining adaptable, always being willing to redesign and rethink things, and treating failures as great opportunities for growth is kind of the best thing you can do in whatever failure that hits you. It's a learning opportunity. None of us get it right the first time, and as a small farmer, I couldn't count on one hand how many things like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or wow, I thought that would work and it didn't, or oh, the javelina just ate all my corn again,
And your takeaway?
My takeaway is to keep going, to observe and interact, to cut yourself some slack, and keep trying.
Awesome. And what do you consider your biggest success?
Going to the Cornville Farmers Market and having it be Farmer Appreciation Day.
With one farmer there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a few more farmers, but they don't have quite as consistent produce. Or, they have microgreens and things. Mm-hmm. But definitely seeing the community act and interact with the farm and, asking me what I'm growing, starting to get people more in tune to seasonal food, I think has been a huge just success. Like, it feels good to me personally when instead of people coming up and asking me for summer squash in April, now they're saying, oh, when do you think this will be ready? Or, oh, you have to dry and cure your garlic. And, it's just sort of educating people and getting people to take steps to reconnect with their food, because everybody eats and everybody needs to eat, human or not human, and food has a great ability to cross cultures, which I think is a wonderful thing.
Oh, yes.
Too.
And what drives you?
Clean water and clean air and 6 inches of topsoil and the fact that it rains. I just want to leave this place better than I found it. I'm, privileged and blessed to have this opportunity here, the really supportive family. I just believe that all species deserve their fair share of nutrition and habitat and life. And unfortunately, we're in a culture where that's not really valued. And there's no doubt that there's a lot of people who do value that. It's challenging to navigate our culture in this time and hold, what is important to me, hold that up high and really try to honor it and be thankful and be a part of the farm. Like sometimes I think I don't manage the farm manages me.
Right.
And, that's true to a certain extent, but, I am just one member of the biological community on the farm. Me and the ladybugs, me and the aphids, me and the cucumbers, whatever it is, me and the javelina, the expletive javelina.
Oh, yeah.
It's all, that's what drives me of,
That's beautiful.
having clean, beautiful spaces that honor the natural world and, meeting other people that share those values.
Yeah, beautiful. If you could recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be and why?
Staying on this theme, I would say it sounds heavy, but it's actually a really enjoyable book to read. It's called The Myth of Human Supremacy by Derek Jensen. And I love that book. And in many ways, he debunks all of the weird things like brain size or opposable thumbs that we think, oh, well, we're so advanced because, we can fly around in airplanes or helicopters or braid hair. And, on the other hand, it's like, well, plants eat light and they don't have brains, but they operate like a brain. So how smart are we if we're the ones really destroying ecosystems and destroying habitat, which ultimately is detrimental to us and everything else? So I think it's a great book to sort of put things in perspective as far as how advanced we really are or
aren't.
Arguably are not. Yes.
Yeah. The Myth of Human Supremacy. I've not heard of that one before. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, by Derek Jensen.
So what one final piece of advice do you have for our listeners?
My advice would be to, if you want to, and I hope that you do whatever speaks to you to reintegrate yourself into the natural world. And whatever that means to you as an individual. And if nothing else, please just acknowledge that the natural world is sentient and mindful and alive, and my life has been so much more for the better since I realized that, and I started really appreciating the natural world, understanding that humans are not separate from the natural world, understanding that we don't necessarily have it all figured out. And we have many, advancements that we could point to, but there's some really fundamental things that I think we're missing. Like Bill Mollison said, probably his most famous quote, though our problems are intense and elaborate, I'm paraphrasing, the solutions are embarrassingly simple. And,
right.
And they are. And so I think, how can we find those embarrassingly simple solutions and really start integrating them and acting on them?
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Raven.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Greg. It was fun.
Oh, man, was it ever. And how can our listeners get a hold of you?
They can email me at blueapplefarmaz@gmail.com. You can follow the farm on Facebook. It's in French, so don't be intimidated. But the farm is La Ferme Pomme Bleue, which is Blue Apple Farm in French. I'm very inspired by the Parisian market gardeners of the late 1800s. I feel like if they can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah. Awesome. You can also find show notes from today's podcast at urbanfarm.org/Blue Apple Farm. We are your urban farming resource. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and everywhere podcasts are found. Also visit urbanfarm.org to find articles, webinars, courses, and more. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on the Urban Farm Podcast.
At Lacrosse Boots, we salute the land. The rolling acres you've come to know like the back of your own hands. The fertile soil where your family has grown and your everyday moments have blossomed into everlasting memories. For this land is your land, your bedrock, your private parcel of earth that keeps you firmly grounded to what truly matters most. For it is the land of bonfires that torch a night sky, the land of dirt-flinging afternoons that wash away everything but the here and the now. The land where you plant seeds of strength and promise, of faith and togetherness. And so, with rubber on foot and pride in soul, you work the land, you play the land, proudly honoring the timeless agreement that by always nurturing the land, it will forever return the favor. Lacrosse Boots, done right since 1897. Visit us at lacrossefootwear.com.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.